Whispers of the Void. The hangar bay of Epsilon Station smelled of fuel, rust, and desperation. Thane Voss ran a hand through his unkempt hair, trying to ignore the pitying glances from other salvagers as he approached the vessel that would either save him or ruin him. The Estrella hung suspended in magnetic clamps, its ancient hull a patchwork of scars and strange, swirling engravings that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. "Final warning, Voss," said Merrick, the station's broker, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused. "3 previous owners disappeared after claiming they heard voices coming from inside. The consortium classified it as haunted salvage." Thane snorted. "I stopped believing in ghosts after my credit account emptied. 15,000 credits is all I have left. Either this ship earns me enough to clear my debts or the collectors take my organs anyway." Merrick shrugged and pressed his thumb against the transfer pad. "Your funeral. Access codes are in the file. Don't come crying when you start hearing whispers." The transaction complete, Thane stood alone before the Estrella. Up close, the engravings resembled star charts of unfamiliar constellations etched by tools unknown to modern metallurgy. He pressed his hand against the hull and felt an unexpected warmth beneath his fingers. "Just residual heat from the docking process," he muttered, though the ship had been cold-docked for months. The airlock cycled with surprising efficiency for a vessel this ancient. Interior lights flickered reluctantly to life as he stepped inside, revealing corridors that curved in ways that defied conventional shipbuilding logic. The air tasted stale but breathable, with an underlying sweetness like distant flowers. Thane moved methodically through the ship, cataloging salvageable components. The navigation system alone might fetch 3,000 credits if he could decode its unique interface. Yet something kept drawing his attention deeper into the vessel, a subtle pressure at the back of his mind like someone whispering just beyond hearing range. "Diagnostics first, ghost hunting second," he reminded himself, but found his footsteps carrying him toward the ship's core instead of the engine room. A sealed doorway blocked his path, its surface edged with symbols that pulsed faintly with bluish light when he approached. Thane ran his scanner over the door, frowning at the readings. "Energy signature doesn't match any known power source," he muttered. "And these markings?" He traced a finger over one swirling glyph, surprised when it responded to his touch by brightening. One by one, the symbols illuminated as he touched them, until the entire doorway shimmered with light. With a soft hiss, it slid open, revealing a chamber that couldn't possibly fit within the ship's dimensions. The room was spherical, walls covered in the same flowing script as the exterior hull. At its center floated a translucent crystal pod, suspended in an energy field that hummed with gentle resonance. Inside lay a woman, or something resembling a woman, her skin a soft lavender hue that seemed to shift and pulse with inner light. Her hair floated around her face like dark water, and beneath closed eyelids, Thane could see movement. "What the hell?" he whispered, approaching cautiously. A control panel glowed nearby, its interface unlike anything in his experience. As he studied it, the whisper in his mind grew clearer, forming words he somehow understood despite their alienness. Release, time, awakening. Against every instinct for self-preservation, Thane found himself reaching for the panel. His fingers moved across the symbols with unexpected certainty. "This is how salvagers disappear," he said to himself, yet couldn't stop his hand. The crystal pod pulsed once, twice, then began to dissolve. The suspended figure within slowly descended to the chamber floor. As her bare feet touched the ground, her eyes snapped open, luminous, irisless orbs that shone with the color of distant nebulae. She looked directly at Thane, her expression shifting from confusion to recognition to something that might have been relief. When she spoke, her voice resonated not through the air, but directly in his mind. "You have finally come. The stars promised someone would remember the way." Then her legs buckled, and Thane lunged forward to catch her before she collapsed. Her skin felt warm against his, and as light as she appeared, there was surprising weight to her form. The ship around them hummed to life, systems awakening after centuries of dormancy. In his arms, the purple-skinned woman looked up with those cosmic eyes and spoke in distinct English. "I am Neris, last of the astral guardians, and you have just freed both of us from a very long imprisonment." As if in response, alarms began to wail throughout the Estrella.
Twilight, resurrection. Alarms screamed through the Estrella as Thane carried Neris from the stasis chamber. The ship's systems, dormant for centuries, now flared to life with chaotic urgency. Corridors that had been dimly lit moments ago now pulsed with crimson warning lights, and the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. "What's happening?" Thane shouted over the noise, struggling to keep his balance with the lavender-skinned woman in his arms. Neris's eyelids fluttered as she fought to maintain consciousness. "The vessel recognizes my awakening," she managed, her voice still carrying that strange crystalline quality. "It was never meant to happen. Security protocols." The floor beneath them lurched violently, sending them both crashing against a bulkhead. Thane winced as pain shot through his shoulder, but he kept his arms protectively around Neris. Her skin radiated warmth, and where his hands touched her bare arms, tiny motes of light seemed to dance between them. "We need to reach the bridge," she said, stronger now, attempting to stand on her own, before the ship initiates its purge sequence. "Purge?" Thane's eyes widened. "As in, flush us out into space purge?" A ghost of a smile touched Neris's lips. "Among other contingencies, your species has always had a flair for understatement." She steadied herself against the wall, her flowing garment of shimmering material catching the emergency lights. For a moment, Thane was transfixed by the way the fabric seemed almost liquid, flowing around her form like captured starlight. "You're staring," she observed, without judgment. "Sorry." Thane shook himself from his trance. "It's not every day I wake up a—" He hesitated. "A what?" Something in her tone suggested she'd heard many answers to this question across many worlds. "A passenger in distress," he finished diplomatically, earning another hint of that smile. They navigated the twisting corridors, Neris growing steadier with each step. She moved with fluid grace despite her obvious disorientation, occasionally placing her palm against the ship's walls as if communicating with the vessel itself. Each time she did this, the alarms would momentarily quiet. The bridge, when they finally reached it, defied conventional spacefaring design. Instead of the expected command chairs and navigation consoles, a circular platform occupied the center of the room, surrounded by what appeared to be floating fragments of crystal that responded to Neris's presence by aligning themselves into complex patterns. "This isn't a ship," Thane realized aloud. "At least, not in the way I understand ships." "The Estrella is many things," Neris replied, stepping onto the platform. "Vessel, prison, sanctuary." Her hands moved through the air, manipulating the crystal shards without touching them. Home. As she worked, the alarms finally ceased. The ship's chaotic energy settled into a steady hum, and the emergency lighting gave way to a soft, ambient glow that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. "There," she exhaled, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "I've convinced it that my awakening was authorized. For now." Thane approached cautiously, studying the unfamiliar technology. "So, are you going to explain what's happening? What are you? Why were you in stasis? And why does this ship think you shouldn't be awake?" Neris turned to face him fully, and for the first time, Thane felt the full weight of her otherworldly gaze. Her eyes contained depths beyond their purple luminescence, galaxies of experience and knowledge that made him feel suddenly acutely aware of his own insignificance. "I was placed in stasis 5,000 of your years ago," she began, her voice softening. "I am what some worlds once called a celestial protector, a guardian of balances that your science has no framework to describe. My people were entrusted with maintaining certain
harmonies across realities. You're saying you're some kind of god? Thane couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. She shook her head, a surprisingly human gesture. Gods are created through belief. I existed long before the beliefs of your kind took shape. I simply am. And why were you locked away in this ship? Pain flickered across her features. Protection. Both for me and from me. She turned away, manipulating the crystal fragments once more. A holographic display materialized, showing star systems Thane didn't recognize. These constellations are unfamiliar. Thane stepped closer, drawn by both curiosity and an inexplicable desire to ease her obvious distress. We're in the Epsilon sector, outer rim of Coalition space, not exactly a tourist destination. Coalition? She tilted her head, processing. Your civilizations have united. He laughed dryly. United is a generous term, more like agreed not to immediately destroy each other, most days anyway. A gentle chime sounded from the crystal array, drawing Neris's attention. Her expression darkened. Someone is scanning this vessel, with considerable sophistication. Before Thane could respond, a viewscreen materialized, showing Epsilon Station's security ships approaching. Salvage vessel Astrea. This is station security. Our sensors detect unauthorized power signatures and life forms aboard. Prepare for boarding and inspection. Thane cursed under his breath. Station security. They must have detected the ship's activation. If they find you... They must not, Neris said with sudden intensity. She stepped down from the platform and approached him, taking his hands in hers. Where his skin touched her bare arms, tiny motes of light seemed to dance between them. I need your trust, just for this moment. The security ships were closing in. In seconds, they'd be locked in tractor beams. Yes, Thane said finally. I trust you. Neris smiled, a real smile this time, transforming her alien features with warmth that reached her luminous eyes. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. The contact sent a jolt through Thane's entire body, as if every cell had been simultaneously awakened. Then hold on to me, she whispered. The Astrea surged to life around them, its ancient engines roaring with power that shouldn't have been possible. Through the viewscreen, Thane watched as space itself seemed to bend around the ship. Epsilon Station and its security ships receded at impossible speed, not because the Astrea was moving away, but because reality itself was folding between them. Thane's last thought before consciousness slipped away was that Neris smelled like the first rain after a long drought. Renewal and promise and life, all at once.
Echoes of divinity. Thane awoke to the sensation of something cool pressed against his forehead. His eyes opened to find Neris leaning over him, her purple skin luminescent in the dim light of what appeared to be the ship's crew quarters. She was dabbing his brow with a cloth soaked in something that smelled faintly of honey and starlight, if starlight could have a scent. "You're conscious," she observed, relief evident in her voice. "Your physiology struggled with the translation." Translation? Thane tried to sit up, wincing at the throbbing in his temples. "Careful," Neris steadied him with a hand on his shoulder. "We moved the ship through the spaces between conventional reality. Your kind isn't designed to experience such transitions." Memories flooded back. Epsilon Station. The security vessels. Neris asking for his trust. Did we escape? She nodded, setting aside the cloth. "We are approximately 17 light-years from where we started, in what your navigation systems identify as the Veiled Nebula. We should be temporarily safe here." Thane managed to swing his legs over the edge of the bed, noticing for the first time that the quarters had reshaped themselves into something more recognizably human. The alien geometry that had characterized the Astrea's interior had softened into more conventional angles and surfaces. "Did you do this?" he asked, gesturing to the room. "The ship adapts to the needs of its occupants." A faint smile touched her lips, "though I may have guided it to provide accommodations more suitable for human comfort." "Thoughtful of you," Thane said, attempting humor despite his disorientation. "So, what now? I'm officially a fugitive, harboring a... He hesitated, still struggling with how to categorize her. A relic, she supplied, moving to a small console that materialized in response to her proximity. One that should have remained forgotten. There was such sorrow in her voice that Thane felt compelled to join her, despite his lingering dizziness. Why were you in stasis? You still haven't really explained. Neris's fingers danced over the console, bringing up star charts and data streams too complex for Thane to follow. My colleagues were guardians of cosmic equilibrium, ensuring the forces that bind reality remained in balance. We weren't worshipped as gods, but many developing civilizations perceived us that way. Hard to blame them, Thane muttered, as W3, several gods SANSN, perceived us that way. Hard to blame them, Thane muttered, as her mere presence caused the technology around them to respond in ways that defied explanation. She continued, 5,000 years ago, something changed. A disruption occurred that threatened to collapse multiple realities. My colleagues believed the only solution was intervention on a scale that would have devastated countless worlds. But you disagreed? Thane jested, beginning to piece together her story. Neris turned to face him, her cosmic eyes haunted by ancient pain. I refused to sacrifice billions of lives for the theoretical preservation of order, so I acted alone, containing the disruption within myself. Within yourself? How is that even possible? By becoming a vessel for forces I was never meant to contain. Her hand unconsciously rose to her chest, where a faint glow pulsed beneath her garment. The price was high. I became dangerous, unstable. The Astria was constructed both as my sanctuary and as a prison to protect others from me. Thane tried to absorb this revelation. And now? Are you still dangerous? The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Before she could answer, the ship's warning systems activated, bathing the room in amber light. We're being scanned, Neris said, returning her attention to the console. Sophisticated technology directed specifically at isolating my energy signature. How is that possible? No one knows we're here. Someone has been waiting for me to awaken. For a very long time. The view screen materialized, showing a sleek vessel approaching through the nebulous swirling gases. Its design was predatory, bristling with weapon systems that made Thane's blood run cold. I recognize that ship, Thane said, dread building in his stomach. It belongs to Corvin Drell, the most notorious artifact hunter in the sector. He specializes in recovering items of cosmic significance, usually for the highest bidder. Neris's eyes narrowed. Then he serves the Harbingers, though he likely doesn't know it. Harbingers? Those who have awaited the disruption's release, who would use what I contain to reshape reality according to their design. She turned to him, sudden urgency in her movements. Thane, you must understand, if they capture me, if they extract what I've held imprisoned, countless worlds will suffer. Another alarm sounded, more urgently this time. The view screen showed Drell's ship launching what appeared to be boarding pods. They'll be here in minutes, Thane said, scanning the room for anything that might serve as a weapon. Any chance you can do that reality-bending trick again? Neris shook her head, frustration evident. The translation depleted the ship's reserves. We need at least 6 hours to accumulate sufficient energy. Then we fight, Thane said, with more confidence than he felt. To his surprise, Neris placed her hand on his chest, directly over his heart. The contact sent that now familiar warmth flowing through him, but this time accompanied by something else, strength, clarity, purpose. No, she said softly, I will not allow you to sacrifice yourself. This is my burden. I made my choice when I woke you, Thane replied, covering her hand with his. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Something shifted in her expression, a vulnerability that transformed her alien beauty into something deeply, achingly familiar. She leaned forward, hesitant at first, then with growing certainty, and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle, exploratory, but Thane felt it resonating through his entire being, as if she were touching not just his body, but his very essence. When they parted, tiny motes of light danced in the air between them, swirling like miniature galaxies. That was, he began, at loss for words. A promise, and perhaps a beginning. A violent shudder ran through the ship as the first of Drell's boarding pods attached to the hull. "Stay behind me," Thane said, positioning himself between Neris and the door. But she stepped forward instead, her posture changing, as power began to radiate from her in visible waves. Her eyes blazed with internal light, and the air around her shimmered with potential. "No," she said, her voice layered with harmonics that seemed to bend the very fabric of space. "I have hidden long enough. It is time for this guardian to remember her purpose." As the doors slid open to reveal armed mercenaries, Neris raised her hand, and the universe held its breath.
Stellar fugitives. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously as Neris extended her hand toward the mercenaries. The air between them shimmered with opalescent energy, crystallizing into a barrier that absorbed the first volley of weapons fire. The soldiers, a mix of human and various alien species, hesitated, clearly unprepared for resistance of this magnitude. "Stand down," came a voice from behind them. The mercenaries parted to reveal a tall figure with skin the color of burnished copper and eyes that gleamed with cybernetic enhancements. "I've waited too long for this moment to have it ruined by overeager subordinates." "Corvin Drell," Thane muttered, recognizing the infamous artifact hunter from wanted bulletins across the sector. Drell stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Neris with an intensity that bordered on reverence. "A genuine celestial protector. The legends hardly do you justice." He offered a bow that somehow managed to be both respectful and mocking. "My employers will be most pleased." "Your employers serve forces beyond their comprehension," Neris replied, her voice still carrying those strange harmonics. "Tell me their name, Hunter." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Drell's features. "They call themselves the Order of Ascending Light. They've spent millennia searching for you, or something like you." "The Harbingers have many names across many worlds," Neris said, her energy barrier still humming between them. "Their goal remains unchanged, to harness what I contain and reshape reality to their design." Drell shrugged elegantly. "Theological matters don't concern me. I deliver what I'm paid to acquire." His gaze shifted to Thane. "The human, however, is excess baggage, disposable." Before Thane could react, one of the mercenaries raised a weapon. Neris moved with impossible speed, the barrier between them collapsing inward and then exploding outward in a pulse of energy that sent the boarding party sprawling. She grabbed Thane's hand, pulling him toward a side corridor that hadn't existed moments before. "The ship responds to my needs," she explained as they ran. "But I cannot maintain this level of manipulation for long." They reached what appeared to be an emergency escape pod, though its design, like everything else aboard the Estrella, defied conventional engineering. Neris placed her palm against the access panel, and the pod's door slid open with a soft hiss. "Get in," she urged. "What about you?" Thane demanded, suddenly afraid she meant to sacrifice herself. Her expression softened. "Together, remember?" She followed him inside, sealing the door behind them as the sounds of pursuit echoed down the corridor. The pod's interior was surprisingly spacious, with control interfaces that responded to Neris's touch by illuminating with familiar swirling patterns. She worked quickly, her fingers dancing across symbols that rearranged themselves beneath her touch. "I'm programming a course through the Veiled Nebula. There's an outpost on the edge of this system, Helios Waypoint, where we might find temporary sanctuary." "And leave the Estrella to Drell?" Thane couldn't hide his disbelief. A sad smile touched Neris's lips. "The ship has served its purpose as my prison for 5 millennia. Now it will serve one final function." She completed the sequence, and the pod hummed to life around them. "Watch." Through the viewport, Thane saw the Estrella's internal geometry collapsing in on itself. Its Drell and his mercenaries could be seen retreating in panic as the ship's transformation accelerated. "You're destroying it," he realized. "Returning it to its component energies," she corrected, as the pod detached and accelerated away. "The Estrella was always more than a vessel. It was an extension of myself, designed to contain the excess energy I couldn't safely process."
Behind them, the ancient ship pulsed with blinding light, its form unraveling into streams of radiance that scattered throughout the nebula. Drell's ship, caught in the periphery of the energy release, tumbled away with significant damage to its propulsion systems. "That won't stop him for long," Thane observed. "No," Nereus agreed, her features drawn with fatigue. "The energy expenditure was significant. I haven't used my abilities at that level since before my imprisonment." Without thinking, Thane reached out to brush a strand of her dark hair from her face. The simple gesture felt simultaneously presumptuous and inadequate. "Rest," he said. "I can monitor our course." To his surprise, Nereus leaned into his touch, her cheek pressing against his palm. The contact sent that now familiar warmth spreading through him, but gentler this time, a sharing rather than an overwhelming. "Your kindness is a rare quality, Thane Vos," she murmured, her eyes drifting closed. "Even rarer is your acceptance of what you don't understand." "Don't give me too much credit," he said with a half-smile. "I'm still processing the fact that I've got an ancient cosmic guardian in my escape pod." A soft laugh escaped her, the sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "And I'm still processing being awakened by a human salvager with debt problems." As Nereus drifted into a state of restorative dormancy, Thane found himself studying her features. Asleep, she seemed almost vulnerable. The power that had so effortlessly held Drell's forces at bay now quiet beneath her lavender skin. The slight rise and fall of her chest, the occasional flutter of her eyelids, these impossibly human characteristics in a being so far beyond humanity. Their pod slipped silently through the swirling gases of the veiled nebula, its advanced propulsion system leaving no trace for pursuers to follow. Hours passed as Thane alternated between watching their trajectory and watching Nereus sleep, questions multiplying in his mind with each passing moment. She stirred eventually, her consciousness returning with a gradual brightening of the luminescence beneath her skin. Her eyes opened, focusing immediately on Thane with recognition and something warmer. "You stayed," she observed. "Where else would I go?" he replied simply. Nereus sat up, taking in their surroundings with a quick glance. "We're approaching Helios Waypoint. I can sense the convergence of many life forms. It's a trading post and refueling station, officially under coalition jurisdiction, but practically lawless. The perfect place to disappear or to find help." "Help?" Nereus tilted her questioningly. "I have a contact there, someone who specializes in moving people who don't want to be found." He hesitated. "But first, we need to address a practical matter." "My appearance," Nereus said, understanding immediately. "I will attract unwanted attention." "To put it mildly," Thane agreed. "No offense, but purple-pinned women with glowing eyes tend to be memorable." A thoughtful expression crossed her face. "I can modulate my physical manifestation to approximate human norms, though maintaining the illusion requires constant attention." Before Thane could respond, Nereus closed her eyes in concentration. A ripple of energy passed over her form, and her skin tone shifted from luminous lavender to a warm brown. The cosmic glow of her eyes dimmed, revealing irises of deep amber. Even her clothing transformed, the flowing garment of living light replaced by practical attire typical of the outer colonies. When she opened her eyes, Thane found himself facing a woman who could pass for human at first glance, though there remained something indefinably otherworldly in her grace and bearing. "Is this acceptable?" she asked, a hint of uncertainty in her voice. I realized he was staring and quickly collected himself. "It's perfect. You look beautiful," he wanted to say, but settled for convincing. A small smile touched her lips. "I sense there was another word you considered," he admitted, feeling heat rise to his face. "But we should focus on landing arrangements." The moment was interrupted by the pod's proximity alert. Through the viewport, Helios Waypoint came into view, a sprawling space station constructed from mismatched modules and salvaged ship components, orbiting a dwarf star at the nebulous edge. Hundreds of vessels of various sizes docked at its extended arms, a testament to its importance as a crossroads for traders, refugees, and those with reasons to avoid official scrutiny. As Thane prepared to transmit their landing request, Nereus suddenly tensed beside him. "What is it?" he asked, immediately alert. "A presence, ancient, familiar," she whispered, her eyes unfocused as if seeing beyond the physical. Her gaze snapped back to him, urgent. "We are not alone in our knowledge of what I carry. There is another of my kind on that station." "Friendly?" Thane asked, his hand hovering over the communications panel. Nereus hesitated, uncertainty shadowing her features. "It has been so long since I sensed another celestial. But whoever they are, they know I am here. And they are waiting.